Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Toffee TV's The Daily Live. It's Tuesday, the 6th of May. John is with me in the studio. We've also got an extra guest off camera, but you'll hear his voice. Mr. X, as we like to call him.
ITKX, yeah.
Well, no, not ITK. Very much not ITK.
That's too many initials for my taste.
James Tarkowski was on Sky Sports last night.
MNF, yeah.
Doing bits, yeah. But he was talking about, obviously, because he was asked about it, Everton and moving into the summer and obviously new owners and all that. It's the first transfer window that they will have been part of. David Moyes' first proper transfer window was nothing got done in January, did they? Apart from Alcaraz, obviously. Going into, bit of a change. And Tarkowski basically said Evertonians should be excited. There's reasons for excitement. Obviously, we've had a tough 5 years, I would say, as we've been building the stadium and all that. But do you sort of agree with those sentiments that we're getting into brighter or shallower waters now and we can sort of start moving forward? There's a lot to do, obviously, but...
Yeah, I think... No.
All right, John.
No, I think it's one of those where, and I'm not sure excited is the right word, I think expectation is, because I think we've, often as a fan base we're accused of having thought ideas above our station, aren't we? And, you win a game, all of a sudden we're going to call to a previous manager, that's it, we're going to conquer the universe. I think it's a fair shout that with a new manager, new owners, albeit 6 months ago now, but new owners and a brand spanking new stadium, which is beyond its capacity, is magnificent. Yeah. Look forward to that being ready. We should be expectant that the challenges and the issues of the past are behind us. But of course, what we saw in the past with the symptoms of other issues, poor leadership, that sort of thing, poor decision making and so on. So we need to see those things get better. And the only way we'll see them get better as fans is when the symptoms we see are not what they were before. So, decisive leadership, effective communication, decision making around players, for example, being done early and effectively and all that sort of stuff. But absolutely, yeah. I mean, I suppose as football fans, we're excited about the start of every season because you all start with 0 points. We start mid-table because it's alphabetical.
And off we go.
And maybe that's what we should have. We need to finish above our alphabetical placing. But yeah, he's right. And it's only what DCL said last week, I suppose. The same sort of thing, isn't it? But yeah, let's see it. Let's walk that talk, though. Without being disrespectful to James. And I didn't watch MNF last night, so I didn't see it live or anything like that. I suppose I could go and watch it back. That's what he would say, isn't it? It's a bit of stop response type stuff, but it needs to be true. Maybe that's my final word on it in that sense.
Is there another show?
What he said, he needs to be. I can be if you want. You can come over here, mate. It needs to be true.
Yeah.
And he might be expressing, I've already seen changes behind the scenes and things are going, and if he'd said that, then I would have been excited. But I think it just sounds like stock response stuff as much as anything else. But it's good. That's what the players, I think, because that makes it attractive to others as well. Say, I want to be part of that.
Well, I mean, Saturday, obviously, playing a delegated team at home, you'd expect it to be
Yeah, absolutely.
great display by the 1878. The opening
Tremendous.
half an hour was sort of going to plan.
Yeah,
2-0 up,
yeah.
comfortable. And then the last hour was very disappointing, wasn't it?
It was, and I think,
get going.
the second half was probably as bad as we've been, full stop, hasn't it, in recent times. Players need to remember and be reminded regularly what's expected. Maybe I just said that, an expectation. And the expectation is you perform better than that. If a better team beats you, they beat you. But it wasn't even they wanted it more. We just said, there you go, do what you like. And, and they're a tidy team, but they're in the bottom three for a reason. And we should be embarrassed as we were players. We should be embarrassed that we were 2-0 up against a relegated team. The fan base are totally on it. Everyone's happy. Ball turned up bloody right angles for the second goal, whatever, blah, 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 and just damn squib stuff in the second half. It's just not good enough.
Andy, should we be worried the way Everton threw the game away at the weekend, or is it just one of those end of season, doesn't really matter, blah games?
Well, yeah, I've had this debate quite a few times recently. It's I've seen clubs be on the beach many times before, working with them as well, which is another thing. But in terms of the Everton, it's difficult because what you've got at Everton at the moment is, and it applies to another club that I've actually worked with, you've got a lot of players leaving in the summer, and that as a culture is hard for a manager to manage because and I think that's why he picks certain players. I'm sad that you've got contracts beyond the summer, in a lot of ways. And Alcaraz's got something to prove for maybe a move. I think that's in Moyes' mind. I don't want to take the foot off the accelerator, but there's a lot of players in the squad who are probably halfway out the door mentally. So that is an issue. I wouldn't worry too much about it. It is an end of season thing. I'm a big believer in you should start bedding in players. I think Schmidt should be playing over Beto. I think we know what Beto does. We've seen what he does. I understand people will talk about the positions will get us more money. Again, £2.5 million. As much as it helps, it's only really going to pay off someone's wages who's on £100,000 a week. It's good, but it's not game changing sum of money. So I think Moyes, or Everton as a whole, should be looking to plan for next season. That's why I'm a big advocate of whether you think he's good, bad, or indifferent, Patterson play him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you're going to experience players who are probably going to make mistakes because they're the players who need chances, or and are coming in basically from the cold almost. So you're going to have those drops off in performance. I think as well, Everton, if you look at under Moyes, and generally we've performed better against better sides because I think it suits us better. I still think we just talked about it off camera. We talk control of games is a big issue for Everton. I still think we're better on the counter-attack. Moyes teams generally were, but we could all, Moyes best teams at Everton, we could also control games. Yeah. But then when teams sat off us, that's where we struggled because we probably didn't have the players at the time. So I think that's still an issue now, is control of games. And I think it's just this end of the season. I think hopefully Southampton's a 6-7-0 win. Of course, we don't do good as an end well. But I wouldn't. To me, results are not really a big issue. I don't want to finish, just outside the relegation zone of comment, because obviously that's optics for when you're trying to get players in for next season. But generally, I think it's just one of those. It's all an amalgamation of things at Everton at the moment. There's players going out the door. You're trying to bed in certain players. Ipswich are trying to get build some momentum to go down next season because you don't want to go down on the back of 20 losses. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things. I think I wouldn't read too much into losing the draw in that game anyway.
I do.
It did feel like a defeat.
It does feel like a defeat, yeah.
I do, because I don't want to really go with what you're saying, Andy, about don't worry about it. It's
it's not don't worry about it. It's not don't worry about it.
Yeah,
it's not don't worry about it, because I want Everton to win every game they play. I want Everton to win with a coin toss.
Sorry, mate. Go on. Sorry.
No, go on you.
To me, it was lack of commitment levels that were going on. Right. It was, if you like, almost you described it, a culture, a view that it doesn't really matter. Right. We talked here, Andy, a couple of weeks ago about doing exactly what you said, which is starting Chimity, put Patterson in, put O'Brien in as centre-back when Tark got injured. Let them know they're going to start all those games. Let's see how they perform, because the results are less important than getting ready for next season. That bit, I totally agree. But the second half wasn't about that. It was almost at couldn't be arsed level, right? It was false closing down, allowing a relegated team to do what's good for them. I don't quite know why DCL came on rather than Chimity, for example, because that seems to be more for DCL's benefit than the club's benefit from my perspective. Blah, blah, blah. And I
think it's for Moyes' benefit because he wants to get the players trust so he can sign a new deal. For me, personally.
Well, sorry, but in the circumstances, we shouldn't be doing what Dominic wants to get him to sign a new deal when the guy is at that. No, I get it, but I don't think him coming on as a sub makes that difference. So I'll say it again. It was done for DCL's benefit. And if DCL's benefit is we want him to feel wanted, then you know what? That's not the hard-nosed decision-making that I necessarily want to see. Right?
I agree with you, John. This is where it enters the complex realm of managers. I've worked with a few different managers over time.
Yeah.
There's such the way they think is not like the way we think about football. They're superstitious. They think about the way of motivating players. Like, for example, I would have played Chimiti, or he would have already started for me. But I think that Moyes wants him to show, and I don't know if he's shown it in training, I don't watch training, he wants him to show that, like, that level of desire. He's bursting to get in the team. And I think even 1% below that, Moyes won't play him. That's the way Moyes has always been. But whereas with the Dominic Calvert-Lewin thing, I think he's like, I want to show that as soon as he's back fit ready, I'm getting him back out on that pitch. If you commit to us, we'll commit to you. Now, that's just me summarising. I don't know that for sure. For all I know, Moyes is like, I want to win this game. Dominic Calvert-Lewin gives us the best chance to win this game. We watch Beto, generally hold-up play is not great, is it? Let's be honest. He's got a goal, good header, but generally the hold-up play is not great. So I do agree with you about the second half as well, coming back to it, John, that the commitment level wasn't there. Unfortunately, I've watched too many games for Everton over the last, not even the last 5-10 years, 30 years or 40 years, or 30 years I've been watching Everton. It happens, and it happens, and it's happened under Moyes, even when we're at our best. Some weeks we just don't turn up, and I think the opposition. Sometimes it is the opposition, sometimes it is the end of the season. I think I spoke about it the other day, the Marco Silva season, where at the end of the season we were absolutely on it, beating teams. We finished 8th at the end of that season after being a mid-table team before that. So I think, I agree with you that there should have been more commitment in the second half. I wouldn't say overall though that second half performance is a worry. But I agree with you though, it was disappointing.
Even under Marco, I remember we went to Fulham and they were relegated and they'd had about 15 points and we were on a great run. They beat us 2-0 because the players turned up. Don missed 3 sitters. We turned up, walked around the pitch, got beat 2-0. And that was happening then. It certainly happened under Carlo.
Yeah. 100% Sheffield United.
And if we'd have won the game, we get in Europe and we get beat 1-0 and they're relegated. So I think it is. It's a thing that's gone through Everton teams.
No, I get that, but I hear from Andy, and he's, because he works with not just, probably doesn't work wherever, but works with football clubs in the round. Is from a footballing perspective, that sort of performance at this stage of the season is seen as not a problem. And I think at some point you have to have a sea change that says, just because we've been doing this for 30 years doesn't mean we're going to do it for the next 30 years.
No, I think the problem you've got is, and I agree, I turned up, obviously I expect Everton to win 100% every time you play. And haven't got 2 goals up against the team that's relegated.
Absolutely.
It should have been 4 or 5, not will these get back in it.
Yeah.
When it went 2-1, I thought they'd come flying out for the second half.
We had this chat
the
before.
game to bed.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He came up. And then I listened to David Moyes afterwards, and he was just sort of like, he couldn't have been less arsed, the team, because to me it looked as though he was just sort of going, these aren't my players. This is not my team. We've done well. I'm going to get to the summer, ripping it up, and then you'll see it. Because I think you'll get a different response if that happens next season. Because
100%. This is what, bringing it back to what you said at the start about Toffee. When people say it's changed, there's obviously not much that's changed at the moment. What's probably changed is the culture within the club. Under Dyche, and Thelwell, unfortunately because of the ownership situation, Friedkin's coming in, apart from the stadium, which was the shining light on the hill to look forward to, it's very doom and gloom. Can't buy players, we're always in relegation trouble, deduction of points. And I think when you get new owners in who are saying, this is a new stadium, we're going to invest money in the squad, lads, you're going to get new deals for a couple of players, you probably deserve them. I think that does make it look forward, but then potentially that does make you take the eye off the ball this season where there's very little to play for. As much as players do want to win games and stuff, I don't think they care about places if it's outside Europe or outside of relegation. They just don't, unfortunately. And that's a horrible thing to say, but they don't. I've seen it many times at different clubs.
And there'll be the subconscious thing as well, that if you just off it a little bit.
Well, the 2 goals are because they're just off it. As we talked about, the first goal is a great strike, whatever. We've got into the machinations. The second goal is Brian's just not there with it. He's not mentally on it, and that's
so. Are these guys allowed to be just off it for the Southampton game then?
I don't think they will. I think the Southampton game's got a level of importance above, and wrongly, John, you'll probably point out a level of importance that's above it.
It is important.
I think that. I hope that. Well, this is where I hope they do perform, because I do worry sometimes when there's this expectation they tend to underperform for whatever reason. I don't know why it is. You know, I hope we don't get a "here comes Everton" moment, as I call it. But I think there'll be an extra level of performance. I think the players will be on it. I think Moyes will be pushing. I think Moyes, like, sometimes, you know, games like that where you can say, this is what's not acceptable. I want better than this week. I think sometimes Moyes can use that to motivate players. Like, you know, Pat's not getting a ton of video work this week on his defending, I'm sure, you know, most definitely, to try and improve, because you may as well play in the last 3 games to see what he's got. What's the point in playing the 2 older lads, apart from maybe a Seamus sub appearance against Southampton?
But Baz just said it in the manager's post-match. He didn't seem really arsed. He spent most of his time sat in his dugout, and he was seeing what he wanted to see. He was seeing what Patterson could and couldn't.
Yeah,
he
that
could
definitely.
See what, you know, O'Brien was or was not doing positionally and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, you know, what I'm hearing, if I'm just playing the devil's advocate, is excuses for a performance that shouldn't have happened. Right?
Yeah, agreed.
And we spent months upon months upon months talking about the previous manager, that his only objective was to get the best out of the players that he had. So I don't really subscribe, and I accept it, by the way, as human nature and all that sort of stuff. But the manager either saying, very unlikely to say, but behave like these aren't my players, that's an excuse.
No, I've watched every press conference he's done, pre and post.
Yeah.
And on Saturday, I'm quite sure if I was sat with David Moyes, he'd be like, well, that wasn't what was going on. But my reading of it was he was just a little bit like, where I think a year's time he'd be absolutely fuming.
Let's remember that managers like Jose Mourinho before put kids in games purposely not purposely lose, but have lost games playing kids because they wanted to make a point about they need more players in summer. So there's all sorts of things. I'm not saying Moyes did that, but I'm thinking in the grand scheme of things, one game to him, I know to us it's every week's the result's important. I think in the grand scheme of things, you look at a 2-2 draw in a season where he's already done his, in quotations, done his job, as is not an issue really going forward.
Look at like sort of Liverpool Sunday. They're the champions. They went to Chelsea and got done 3-1 now. But they got done 3-1 2 or 3 weeks ago.
No, of course not.
Because everything dropped slightly. Ipswich, as someone pointed out, they went to Chelsea and were 2-0 up a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
And 2-2. They've been better away. They only won one away.
We spoke
better away.
Absolutely, we spoke about it. They are better away from home.
It was frustrating because we got 2 goals up. Just moving slightly on from that, obviously, the players to come in. We saw Liam Delap at the weekend.
Yeah.
Wasn't very good, let's be honest. He touched the ball about twice or whatever once he started trying to fight. But clearly the lad got something about him, and the all the links are there again today. A lot of noise that he wants to go to Everton.
Does he? Oh, okay.
That's what they say. But again, it can be anything, couldn't it? Because you might be trying to tease United into action or whatever. So all of that is just noise, isn't it? Until they go, here I am with a contract, It's noise. But obviously Everton are looking for a striker. Beto scored again at the weekend, but again, the noise coming from Italy is that clubs want to take him. I'm with Andy. I think I'd have liked Chimiti to have started.
Me too. I agree. We talked about
certainly the first sub. I get he's brought Calvert-Lewin on, and he might have been looking the way the game was going, and Dwight McNeil put 2 crosses in, that maybe if Dom was in the middle would have been an attempt at goal, because Beto doesn't jump as well as Dom.
No.
But I do think we need to have a look at
you do.
And maybe the Southampton games for Chimiti at home. I can't see him playing him. Wouldn't surprise me if Dom starts at Fulham the weekend. If he trains all week without reaction, it wouldn't surprise me at all. But I do want to get a look at Chimiti.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't think it would surprise me either. And I'm wholly comfortable with, and Andy touched on it briefly, and maybe I just chose to hear that it was all about making him feel part of the gang. Yeah, but if he thinks that's the right player, because again we say you've got to get the best out of your players available to you. You've got to play the best players, or the best, the aggregate, or the team, to get the result that you want. And playing away from home, maybe Dom is the man, right? But Chimiti needs to have some time, not added time, which is what he got at. It was 90th minute he came on, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he's under contract, and you can do it both ways. He's still under quite a long contract, therefore don't have a decision to make about him other than whether to go out on loan or not. And that'll all stand and fall on whether we sell Beto, I suppose, or whether we keep DCL, right? But our mission should be for all those decisions to be favourable for us, right? And I think, Chimity needs to get some decent minutes. You know, we know what Beto's about. Did that make him top scorer, by the way?
Joint top scorer.
Yeah, Jointers is still with.
No, both got that.
With Ndai.
Yeah.
But we know what he's about. We may have already, and we talked about it briefly, didn't we? May have already made the decision if the money's right, then we'll let him go because we know what he's about, and perhaps this isn't the league for him. And if we can get a younger, higher ceiling player in replacement, that in practical terms, probably the cost of change isn't huge, then that's really good decision making. And that's where the DCL getting a favourable contract to us as a squad player, not as a first choice, also becomes a good decision. So maybe, you know, there's a little bit of good politics going on there, that there's this little tease that you do have a chance of staying here, Don, right? So don't go and sign for Sheffield United if they win the playoffs, you know, or whatever it might be. I know, I'm joking. Yeah, or go off to Europe or whatever, because you feel the need to have somewhere to go when there's an opportunity. Yeah, but well, Chimity, you know, I'm with you. Won't be Fulham, so that absolutely really leaves unless it's the dead rubber at Newcastle that he gets. I don't know.
I think the way, you know, with Dom away at Fulham, I think that makes sense, because I think, look at Moyes' criticism of Better and holding the ball up. Fulham a very heavy possession team, don't want to attack us at home, especially. The outball is all important, and that's and that's where Dom comes in and Better doesn't. Totally agree, mate. I think that, you know, I like Chimity. I watched him when he played for Sporting Lisbon. I think he started 9 games towards the end of that season. You know, he's 6'4", can move, you know, agile, you know, can score goals. You know, it's just. I think I'm not too sure why he hasn't played again. I don't watch him in training. I'm not suggesting he's been bad in training or anything, but yeah, it is frustrating. Especially, I've been quite frustrated because he's been here he's been here 2 seasons. A couple of injuries, of course, no problem with that, but he should be playing more, really. And we have to be seen to be playing players like that more. You know, we got lucky with Branthwaite, went on loan to PSV. We've not, Armstrong's had a good loan this year at Derby, but players we've brought in previously of a similar age, Chimity, have often fell into the same issue that Chimity has, not playing Lookman, Keane. We go back years to talk about this. I think we need to write that going forward. If Everton are going to be better, a smarter, better club, and deal with these PSR problems, signing those type of players is paramount, and playing them and developing them.
You think, when I was watching Saturday, it was evident that as busy as we are in midfield, we don't have that player who can put his foot on. No. We just don't have it, and it was more evident for the last 25 minutes when Calvin Phillips come on. I'm not saying Everton should go after Calvin Phillips, but when he come on and put his foot on it and was looking around and could spray a pass and he dictated the play a little bit, we just don't have that. Do you think that's an area that,
well, he had Declan Rice, so at best time, so of course I think he'd like a good, better player. No, but no, it is massive. We talked about that. Is, you know, Moyes is all about, you know, minimising the threat to goal, isn't he? You know, when you're late in game, as much as you want to sit, you know, he takes, you know, a winger off for a defender. Sometimes Moyes, that's what his nature is. Yeah. He also wants people who can keep the ball and not put people in danger. And I think controlling games, not Pep level control games, because that's a different level, but being able to keep hold of the ball. You know, we've got a couple of players who literally can't keep hold of the ball at all. You know, Decore being one, obviously. You know, and I think that does create pressure. You know, especially when you've got, you know, it's defensive pivot, midfield pivot of Garner. You know, who likes to put a tackle in, but he's not great positionally. And Garner Gay, who's a fantastic player, but he closes the ball down. He's aggressive. Yeah. It leaves a lot of gaps if you haven't got the right partner next to him. I think that's where Garner's struggled this season. He's probably better last season at times, but this season I think he's looked a bit not very good at times because he's struggled with the fact that he has to close the gap, and that isn't natural to him. So finding someone who can stay with Garner, really, because you want your midfielders always close together. That's going to be and I think someone as well as that who can also control the game with the ball.
Who's if you had to go and sort of choose your number 6, who would it, I don't want to name the player, but what kind of profile would you be looking at for us? Because I noticed on Saturday, the way we are, there is big gaps. If we overcommit, people just run through the middle of us because we haven't got, like, whereas, you know, we split opinion, but whereas Onana was able to do that recovery slide tackle and boss that area because he was big at times, Other times he went through games he didn't know.
Again, though, but his decision making wasn't great. He's getting better at that now as he's playing more games. But yeah, no, I think instantly I go, you want someone athletic who's got pace because of the games and transition so much now. But then also I think about like someone like João Balhina when he was at Fulham. I'm not saying him specifically, but that type of player, the understanding of position and know when to go with a player. It's hard because these midfielders of this level cost a lot of money, and I think this is where Everton need to find maybe an old, a ready one now and maybe a younger one to develop as well, is someone who both has got the athletic ability but he also has got that level of understanding of position. I think Garner, as great as he is, he's probably one of the best midfielders of his type of the last 10 years, and even in Europe, PSG didn't take him for no reason. He has got fallibility in the fact that he does leave his position so often. Now he goes and wins the ball at a higher rate than anyone else does, but you've got to have the right partner next to him to cover that.
To mop it up.
Yeah.
I know he's not that player, but I like Habib Diarra. I've lot the more receiving. He's not going to sit for you and do that job.
In a three, he'd be fine there. I think
the other way, because he takes the ball and can dribble and drives you through. We haven't really had that in midfield. We haven't got it.
Well, Decore was that with the drive when he was younger was more of a driving player. I think when we signed him, he was if you remember that first season under Carlo, Decore was very good. In terms of maybe again
babysitting Hammers' position was.
And Alan again, similar to Garner, likes to go out wide, but he didn't have the pace to get back in like Garner. So that's probably where that didn't work as much. But no, I think that it's fine, that all round profile. It's very difficult to know. But if you're going to play a double pivot, you need all-round profiles. You can't just have a classic six, because if you have the classic six, they tend not to want to get up the field and box to box it, which is important as well, and provide the second third.
It would be interesting only to see what Moyes does, because we have got, like, if you look at the midfield, there is a collection of players who have got sort of similar attitudes. I personally think Abdoulaye Doucouré is better deeper now. I think his game. It's
being a first receiver though. We can't do that.
We need.
You'd have to miss him out. You'd have to miss him out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, what I'm saying is the other bits. He goes and
he's good. He's a ball winner. Yeah,
busy.
And he arrives. Yeah.
I think the way Everton are, because we don't have tons of goals everywhere else. I think the player behind needs to be a little bit more creative.
I think first receiver for Moyes, I think everyone plays off from the back now. I think they're wrong with a Calvert-Lewin, with another striker of a similar type, we can go long. But that first receiver in midfield, that's not Garner, is important, because it sets you on your way then. And I think that's what Everton have lacked probably for quite a long time, really, that first receiver. We always said, a number of midfielders under Moyes when he was previously that could receive the ball under pressure, Osman, Arteta, people like that. I think we need them again, that more under pressure, as well as we need those Ndai types who can break the press,
John, on Saturday it was Everton, we just didn't have any pace anywhere, did we? Dwight McNeil's, again, for me, you're playing Dwight. We either need a bomb and left back and you play him off the left, or you can only really play him off the striker, because he's got the thing that no one else has got in that team, is the ability to shoot from 25 yards, which we saw with the goal.
Sure.
But why? There's just no pace. Like, Ndiaye, as tricky as he is, he's not a runner, is he?
No.
And then on the other side, we've struggled with it all season. Harrison's he works hard, he's not quick.
Yeah.
Other teams, even Ipswich at times when he broke with Hutchison, was quick, and Ciso was quite quick running with the ball. We don't ever have that, do we? And that has got to be an area that Everton surely.
Well, it has to be, yeah. And you talk about it, which you can turn it into there's an imbalance in what we've got, isn't it? Because muchness type thing, and you're referencing there about down the middle. I mean, that's been really acutely evident over the last 3 or 4 games, isn't it? And the manager's not tried to do anything. So going back to the politic, and he was talking about before, maybe he's saying, I need someone in that position, as you can see, yeah. But style of play is always going to be difficult with some of those players who have restrictions like that. I mean, Alcaraz and Ndai and Dwight McNeil all in the same team at the same time.
They're all 10s.
Yeah.
You've got, I think, out of 6 wingers who play for five wingers who play for Everton this season, only Harrison's actually a natural winger. Lindstrom's really a wide 10 or a 10. Yeah. Alcaraz 10. So you're playing similar types of players all the time.
Absolutely. And so
it shows, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it shows, and it all comes back to, the right honourable, the answer I gave to you previously, sort of thing, because we keep coming to it, don't we? We need that pacey width, right?
Not just from wide, from fullback as well.
Or fullbacks as well, because the fullback's ability to overlap and recover, because for all his defensive strengths, if you want to call it that, Mike Oakley has a nosebleed when he gets too far up, doesn't he? And recoveries can be a bit, asking, delayed and all that sort of shit. But yeah, we need pace. We know
I think
that.
if you go back to Everton when they were what I would call last, a really exciting watch, and we've had little brief periods. I'd say Koeman's first season, we had Morelos, Lukaku, Barkley, all pace,
And ball carrier there as well.
Ball carrying as well, and then you look at, then we move to Sigurdsson, Rooney, Klassen, and it's never really, we've bought the odd bits of players who could run, but never really lightning pace. Again, we've signed a lot of tents, again, more so over the years. Yeah, we've not really had out and out wide players or players with that real physical pace, for all Barkley's failings, or whatever we want to call him. What a physical marvel he was as a player, pace-wise, size-wise. Yeah, you need more of that. That's the difference with Everton have not been up the league, is because, yes, we took a lot of goals out the team as well, but also that pace factor as well.
We've been talking about this for years.
Oh yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So it's not rocket science to lay out what you need in this league to be successful to a certain standard, and how much money you need to spend to achieve that. That's when you send your recruitment guys off.
Who was the last two managers previous to Moyes, though? One was a Spanish man who just like anything outside of functional, and the other guy is the most functional man alive. So, and this is what the problem is: unless those wide players could defend at a certain level, and sometimes you have to, like Moyes, to trade the players off all the time. You go, well, I've got this solid player behind him; he'll be fine. Dyche and people like that weren't willing to do that.
Yeah, I get that. But
the club has to be strong, of course.
Again, going back right to the beginning of this thing, when we talk about leadership and stuff like that, there's an example, what you're saying, Andy, of the two previous managers to this one were having final say that was totally about how they prefer to play football. And if you give the current manager or future manager that same total control, then you end up where we end up. Yeah, you end up with a style of play for a particular manager which doesn't work when the manager becomes somebody else. And whether we like it or not, in this league, every manager, when we walk through the door, the clock start running. And if you're still here in 18 months, you've been doing something right. Yeah. So you've always got a plan around the fact these players might have to be used by a different manager, particularly if they're young ones. You put them on long contracts and all that sort of stuff. So recruitment people have to do their job properly, and the manager has to be happy with what they're offering up. But it has to be within a plan that says...
Yeah, CEO has to be strong, yeah.
Sorry, mate?
CEO has to be strong, doesn't he?
Absolutely.
Owner's vision onto the football.
Totally agree. And one of the things that I like when I saw Kinnear talking on the Leeds podcast was about wanting natural tension in the decision-making process with... But the way he was describing his natural tension was the recruitment team saying one thing per se, and the manager saying something else. In other words, the recruitment team are on the chief exec side of the house, and the coaching staff presumably on the manager's side of the house. You go in a room, you have a big bun fight, you have collective responsibility, and you make decisions.
This is
done quickly.
I totally agree, John. But this is the fundamental issue in England as a football culture. We believe in the manager. The previous chairman, God rest his soul, he was all about giving the manager the tools, not the club, the manager the tools.
Yeah.
And I think that's an issue. England wide, really, maybe in Scotland, even if you want to go that far as well. And I think that's where clubs, I hate to use Brighton because they're a completely different club to Everton, completely different philosophy, whatever. But they see head coaches interchangeable. They see them like players. We can sell this head coach if a club comes in for him, or we'll change him because he's a head coach, not a manager. And that's where Zerbi fell foul of, because he wanted too much control and he wasn't willing to play players like Belieber, for example, in and out under Zerbi this season. Star man this season, 120 million being bandied around. And that's the difference between a head coach sometimes and a strong manager. I'm not saying Everton needs to go full into the head coach and interchangeable, because I know that would make fans probably a bit uneasy. But there has to be that the club philosophy, the club strategy has to be paramount. I love David Moyes. He's probably the best manager of my Everton lifetime. I know Coward was in for a brief period, but he wasn't great when I was young. It's paramount that the club do look beyond these 2-3 whatever number of years Moyes is here. It has to be a plan. And if we've had this problem from lurching from one different type of manager to the other. What aligns Frank and Rafa Benitez and Dyche? Virtually nothing, apart from maybe Rafa and Dyche are a tiny bit similar. You can't keep doing that. This is the change I want to see. We saw about John saying, but wait and see about being optimistic. I'm optimistic, but I also want to see the fruits of change fit before I start believing in everything.
I want to see indicators.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
I'm not one of. We have lots of fans who want to know everything about everything that's going on every minute of the day, and I don't need to know the minutiae behind the scenes. But what I do see, I want to be indicators that we're doing the right thing. you know, and part of that doing the right thing is being decisive in decision making and effective in communication. Right now, we're in that little hinterland of everyone waiting for the chief exec to turn up, you know, and yet we're still getting linked with players. So you're thinking, well, you know, this time of the season, what else is going to be going on inside the media? And leagues are sorted out. It's only a bit of Champions League and the Premier League. Everything else is done. So let's talk about next season. Oh, that means players. That means Everton want this player.
Course, yeah.
So talk is cheap. But if decisions had to be made right now, who would be making them, right? And I think the answer is right now, they wouldn't be made. Therefore, we know we've got a little period of time till June the 1st, or whenever Angus Kinnear turns up, you know, officially, I mean, you know, walks in the building, this is my gaff now, sort of thing. And then you need to be able to move quickly. And we know we've got some milestones because we've got a pre-season in the United States. So we've talked about it before. If we haven't got any players through the door for that pre-season and a load have gone, that's an indicator that something isn't quite right yet, isn't it? Right? And you know, Rome wasn't built in a day and all those sorts of cliches, but we should see regular signals that things are being done. Let's call it differently, which was a euphemism for better, and so on. And then kill all these stupid rumours we get about everything from whether hospitality lounge is going to be ready or not, or whether we're signing this player or this one's staying or this one's leaving, and all those sorts of things. And all that change opportunity, if you're comfortable with change, which I am, has to be exciting, because you've got a short circuit opportunity, haven't you, to fix long-term ills of the past. But that requires decisive leadership and authority. And you're right, you're spot on, Andy. When Angus walks through the door, people need to know that they have to listen to him, because he is the chief exec. And let's see if that's what happens.
Paul Williams says we need pace in the side. I know
Spot on.
people will disagree, but I thought we played some good football on Saturday in the first half. We have exciting times ahead. I hope we keep a few players, as we need a squad. Someone asked about Richard Rios.
Yeah, I like Richard Rios. You look at the two lads who came in at Wolves, Andre and João Gomes. They've had no problems transitioning from Brazil. A Brazilian friend always says to me that Brazilians adapt to any league in the world better than any other player, which is true. There's more Brazilians in leagues across the world than any other. No, he's a good player. Really, he's an Everton type of player, hands dirty, but he's also got a bit of technical ability as well. He's a good player. It depends on cost, though. I wouldn't be sinking 30+ million into him, I'll be honest. And Brazil's got money flowing around it now, not only from transfers, but from club ownership as well. So it depends on price. But he is a good player.
What do you think of Yuri Alberto?
It's a no for me.
Pace.
I just don't see it. I'll be honest. I think he scores goals there. You know, if it was a Spain, I'd go okay, but no, not Premier League. You want that more at top level athlete.
Got to be, haven't he? They've got to be. That's similar to.
I look at it like this. Goal scorers. You need a goal scorer, of course. No one diminishes goals, but say you score 10. In 10 games total in a season, you score goals and you score 15 because you score 2 in a couple of games. What are you doing for the other 23 games? If you're adding nothing, then that's just not how it works in the Premier League anymore. You have to add something in every single game, whether it be press and hold and play, wherever.
Definitely. Well, because it's been asked about 40 times. This rumour doing the rounds that Everton have asked for the first 2 games.
Oh boy.
The rumour.
Yeah.
Not being confirmed or whatever. I mean, how disappointing would that be, John, if that was real?
Oh, if it was real. It's like anything. It'd have to be why, wouldn't it? You know, why is it not ready? But I'd have to go.
The first week in May.
Yeah, I'd have to go back to my anchor point when we were listening to all the stories around. We're not moving mid-season. We need to give the old lady proper send off. Nothing's been done basically outside the 78, really. So and the other thing we talked about from a project point of view, if he tells people stuff has to be ready for July the 1st. It'll be ready for July the 1st. You tell them August the 1st, it'll be August the 1st. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I say projects tend to expand to fill the available time. And then something can happen outside your control, like a war, but something can happen outside your control and your plan gets thrown straight straight off.
Yeah.
I suspect it's more of a rumour than a fact anyway. So
I'm very disappointed, John, that you didn't mention. You said the club haven't done enough, but they're offering seats for £90 that they're only going to throw in the bin a week later if no one takes them.
Yeah,
that's a real great offer. Let's be honest.
I think it would be disappointing, yes, if because what you're really saying is, would I be disappointed if the stadium wasn't ready for the start of the season?
Is it quite common that stadiums are delayed though? I remember Tottenham didn't open till the end of whatever number of season it was, and they
finished mid-season.
That's it. Should have been ready in November, and it's May, and it's still.
The club started fitting out in December when the keys were handed out.
I'm not going to
the way I look at it, right? I don't know if it's real or it isn't.
No, I
real,
don't.
But I'd be really surprised that a decision is getting made when it's literally about fitting out lounges. You get 2 teams in and you do through the night.
More than it being a crisis, I think the issue is it's the image it portrays.
Yeah,
we're all about, this summer's about change. It's about culture change, about shift of cultures. And then, as I always call it, that here comes Everton moment. You don't want those anymore. You want this step forward, or if it's a step sideways, it's for a good reason, not a step back. You don't want any more steps backwards. And it just feels like if it is true, I'm not too sure it is. I don't get involved in anything to do with the stadium.
I just say on this subject, I guess. The industries I worked in, very good project managers were worth their weight in gold because they would get things done that other people said weren't possible. Now, the resources that deliver those projects are the same people. So the project manager is literally manager of a team, right? And it's got to be a vibrant challenger environment. You ask a question and get told, no, Department X don't want that to happen. Okay. Why? You know what I mean? You've got to go into that why mode. To me, it's beyond my personal experience that the stadium wouldn't be ready for the first match day weekend because it's been so long. It's not moved. You know what I mean? It's always been August, and that would suggest then that the last pre-season game before the season starts, the stadium wouldn't be ready. If it can't be ready for the week after, one assumes it's not ready.
Just done it with no hospitality.
Well, I don't.
That look bad as well. You want it to be fully open, fully operational.
Yeah. So with all that in mind, and with your very simplistic but works, just throw resources at it, which is fundamentally what we're saying.
Pace of overtime.
It seems likely that it will be ready, doesn't it? And it's just a rumour. Someone did put in one of my WhatsApp groups that he remembers. Bow's at you. He remembers last December rumours starting that Lango Rock were going to hand the stadium over late, and they didn't, did they? So maybe it's just one of those.
Listen,
we've asked, but we haven't got an answer.
There's a lot of time. You can't. No one don't need anyone to get upset. I just think it's 2 things.
It would be disappointing.
One, doesn't, like Andy said, it doesn't give you the best perception.
No, it doesn't.
And 2, from an actual playing perspective, it puts the team on the back foot. 2 away games at the start of the season, so you could end up losing both games.
And that is hard work at home.
There was definitely a team that played the first couple of away games away. It was Liverpool played.
Liverpool did with the
Cop. That's right. That's right. I remember them.
I'll go back to what I said before about when we were having it explained to us changing mid-season, and a decision was made not to change for good reasons, giving the old lady a good send-off, blah, blah, blah. At that time, no excuses were delivered of we couldn't be ready.
No.
You know what I mean? So let's just wait and see, and it could just be one of those Twitter rumory things that just kicks off and finds a life of its own. So.
James Graham says some great interviews over the weekend from Big Dunk, Tarkovsky, and Baz on the lap.
Who's lap you on?
It's a shame we don't get this attention normally. Let's hope we start getting more attention.
Did you watch the football? I didn't. Have you watched the Football Focus thing? Was it any good?
I didn't watch it either.
Football Focus was about us, wasn't it?
I think Ped watched it.
Ian the Blue says we bought too many Championship players and paid them Premier League wages. Tarkovsky is the one exception. He's been brilliant.
He's a Premier League player.
Again, the wage bill is a big thing, isn't it? Trying to grab hold of that. and not let that spiral to. But it is difficult because obviously wages.
If you want to be a top 10 club, you have to pay a top 10 wage bill. There is teams that overperform that.
For money, though,
Oh, I completely agree. You know, paying Michael Keane whatever he's getting right now is probably not really value for money.
Yeah.
Fourth choice centre half, you don't want to be paying more than your first. He's actually on more than both the starting centre half. So yes, that needs to change.
Yeah.
I think you need. I think we did it well under Moyes. You always had. I know we lost players because of it, unfortunately, but you always have that. There's an in between number for your starters or what are perceived to be starters. Because I'm one of those people who believes in you've got the 17, 18 players who could start every week.
Yeah.
And it's horses of courses. I think the best teams do that, but yeah, definitely you need to. It is disappointing that when you look at it all in all, I think it's only come down a couple of million in like the last 2 or 3 years, which is not great. Not great.
And the top line revenue has stayed the same for.
When you haven't got the new stadium, for example, it's hard to generate that new revenue because unless you're perceived to be in Europe and get those kickers from your bonus sponsor, it is hard to get that new. But there's always ways to be better, as John was about to tell me.
Commercial performance is the big bogey that it's shrunk or gone backwards or stood around the same thing for ages. Yeah. And that is clearly a space where the new ownership will be instructing chief execs and board members to sort that out.
Before we carry on, we had a message this morning. Some really, really sad news. Joseph McManus has sadly passed away. He went to Benidorm on a last-minute trip with his mates and passed away while he was there. He was a big blue, massive Evertonian. Listened to Toffee TV a lot, helped him fall asleep, probably because we're boring. But he listened to it every night, and he absolutely loved Everton. So his family and friends are trying to raise funds to bring his body home and stuff. So if you see that, it's Joseph McManus. He's a father of 3. You might have seen it in the news or whatever. Awful news, but just look out for that if you can. Obviously, we're sending our thoughts and wishes to his family. If you can help, if you see that GoFundMe page, anything will make it a difference. But obviously just passing on our thoughts and prayers to his family at this awful
So young
time.
as well.
Most definitely.
42 years of age, terrible. Not an age at all. So yeah, if you can help, then thank you. Just back on the footy, Stephen says, hey lads, had a great trip up to pay homage to Goodison Park with my lad Jack. Gutted about the second half display from the Blues. Massive work to be done around personnel coming into the club during the summer. On the plus side, got to meet Ped again. And then he put, I'm feeling positive for the future.
That's the impact.
I have to say, Ped has become awfully positive in the last couple of months. Maybe not in here, but in the WhatsApp group that we share, he's very positive.
That's because you're a miserable bastard.
Josh says
It takes one to know one.
it's criminal that in our final season at Goodison, we'll have won the least amount of home games ever. What have you made of it, John? 4 home and goals.
You've got to say, it's
not great.
Horribly though. Did we? It's again. I hate to say this, but it's very Everton, isn't it? Expectation up here, results down here. It's just this is what we want the culture to change. You want the mindset to change, the fans, the people on the side of the club, whoever. Yeah, it hasn't been the greatest send off, has it? Unfortunately,
Stuff has just been allowed to wither.
Well, the previous manager, whatever you wanted to call him, very, very lax, in what was expected in results terms. I don't think he saw the importance of Goodison Parks last year.
Well, he said it, didn't he? Derek says, lads, a bit concerned of a few of the players we're linked with, like Bardi, Hammer, Longstaff, Christensen, to name a few. They're not much better than what we've got now, and in some cases worse. We need more exciting names and expand our horizons. We need pace. The only one that lot who has any pace is Bardi, and that's vanishing.
Can I speak on this?
So, what I would say,
come on.
All I'd say is, like all the exciting names you're linked with, doesn't really mean anything, does it? We will be linked with probably everybody.
Yeah, I've worked for clubs, and you get linked with players that have never even the word hasn't passed anyone's lips in the recruitment room. And I mean, agents have got a job to do. They've got and by the way, this works as well at some clubs. Good clubs know, but clubs who are struggling for names, they see Brighton a link with so. We'll have to have a look at him then, and it does work. There's a psychological part to it. But the best clubs go. We already know who that is, no problem. But so Christensen's agents, I doubt he wants to go back to Denmark or Holland, where you'll get a third of the money's on at Leicester. It's within his agent has to try and promote his name. I very much doubt Everton would sign Christensen because him and Michaelenko are not that different, and there's not a real athletic upturn in what you're getting offered there or attacking wise. Yeah, it's hard for fans because the names excite you or the names don't excite you or whatever. What you really, it's a lot of noise for Nathan Silver book, signal and noise. The signal's very quiet, the noise is very loud, and you're looking for the signal. The signal's the important part, and I think that I wouldn't overreact to names. Good names don't overreact, bad names don't overreact. Sad to say, it's a boring way to live your life, but that is the truth.
Got a question for you, Andy. No, when your clubs are going into this phase now, which is ultimately you do inevitably get from it's not about this season, it's next.
Some clubs
start to plan which players you're going to keep, which players you're going to let go, and then clearly you're going to try and raise the over quality of squad by bringing players in. Do they actually do profiling of types of players with some rules wrapped around it, around physical needs, wage bills obviously is part of it, ceilings, all that sort of stuff? And if they do they stick to it?
So you do all your work pre-summer. So by this point, obviously there's been a lot of change in the Everton department, so it may fluctuate. But in a normal summer, you would have done all the work, so you'd have all the agents, the information off the agents. You may or may not have, wink, wink, spoke to the player. Tapping up doesn't really exist in football anymore unless someone wants to complain. You may, you've done all the psychological stuff. You've gone through the social media. There's companies you can pay now to psychologically evaluate players' social media. So there's all sorts of stuff like that going on. But it can change because what can happen is players become available you didn't think were available that you like, and it does. And there's unfortunately not at every club. Again, the best clubs know, but availability bias is massive. So if a player that people like, so say for example, I'm not saying this will happen. Thomas Souček comes available. Moyes' dream midfielder. If that's the case, I don't know. I think it is, but if that's the case, that's where plans start to change. But you have a list, so you have your ideal, you have your second, your third. Once you get into your seventh or eighth options, that's when you start getting worried because, and it has happened to clubs I've worked for, where they're not the players you wanted originally, but you need a player. Now, don't be wrong, it has worked out for some clubs where they took the third, fourth or fifth option. I remember Liverpool, I think Mane was the second, third or fourth option, I can't remember, and they ended up with Mane and he obviously worked out great. But some clubs, the difference between that first and seventh candidates are massive. It's also about being realistic. If Delap is probably maybe number, I don't know if he is, but maybe number one on the Everton list. But then they'll have they will believe they have a second who's equally as good that they'd be happy to get, and maybe it's shades because Delap's got those goals in the Premier League. I know people hate that, but it is a big factor in recruitment decision making. And
when they do the segmentation round that, and say, use Delap as the example, he's the number one choice and somebody else is the number two choice.
That's all opinion.
Are they literally like that by name? Or is it?
In my experience, yes.
So they're not cat brackets.
It depends, though. So sometimes you do have, you have your top tier, your middle tier, bottom tier. It depends who has the final decision. If the manager, you will provide them with 5 names, maybe you don't overload them. If you give them 10 names, too much. They won't watch all the players. But if you give them 5 names, then yes, then they might pick the 5th name.
Sure.
But then you've got to then balance it why you put the player first. Now, some people won't reveal a hand and say, here's the 5 players, not in order, and see what the manager comes out with. But it all depends on the process. I think process is very important. Unfortunately, some processes go out the window in the summer, as I say, when availability bias and different things come into play. But generally, going into the window before anything happens, yes, exactly that.
So if you were doing that for a client and you were shortlisting for a particular role, would you give them a priority, or that
yes, I would.
I've suggested is this number one guy.
So you obviously it's subjective because I could use the data, but then when you get to your top 2-3 targets, the data shouldn't be that wide varying. They should be of a certain level anyway. Obviously, there's nuances to it because you could say, this player is really excellent. And using data, you can see an 80% match for our style of play, but then you might have a player that's an 85, and that 5% can be all the difference.
Sure.
But when it comes down to it, it's all subjective because the manager's not going to be. The manager will look at the data potentially, not in all cases, but he will make a decision based on watching the player, his gut feeling for the player, and there's still a large element of subjectivity in it.
And is that shortlisting done within a price point as well?
Yes, prices, of course. So that's a rule and out point. So you will also make lists for different scenarios. So if the budget hasn't been set by the Friedkins, Moyes may go, well, this is our top list, this is our middle list. Some players might cross over onto both, but there'll be a top list and a lesser list, of course, there will, yeah.
And you, of course, if you're doing this for a client and therefore perhaps an internal recruitment team are doing it, but using you to help them, that's across the whole estate of what they're bringing in. In other words, we can't have both our number one choices because the price gets wrong. Yeah.
What do you mean by the price gets wrong? Sorry.
Well, if you're bringing in 5 players across 5 different positions, say, right, you've got.
Oh yeah, all the top targets will be too expensive to buy. Yeah,
that's what I mean.
So you have to have done enough work on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Right.
So you have to be ready. I don't think any club. There's probably some clubs that do have an ideal. Now, luckily, in some cases, you will get your ideal target, and then that's great because then you go across that list off. But again, yeah, you've got to be really happy. I think whereas Everton in January, and they were looking for a winger, and obviously I think Ernest Nuama was suggested. I don't think they had much behind that because we would have seen that, I think. And then Alcaraz came in maybe as a different type of player. But I think the depth of lists and the amount of work done is paramount. Yes, you've got
Hence why you should have started a while ago.
Yeah. Well, it should have. I think the good thing is the database won't change. Some clubs, unfortunately, it does. The database won't go out the door with Kevin Thelwell. The database is Everton's, intellectual property.
Sure.
And then it's how you augment what's been done before into your new process. I think if you see a player like I remember in a story that Tino Livramento had from when he was 16 till he was whatever age he signed for Southampton. Everton had loads of reports on him through different regimes, and he was still going to sign him when he was going to move to Southampton. Unfortunately, as we know, a certain Spanish man said no. He wants to have a look at John Joe Kenny for an extra 2 weeks, but. Yeah, it's the work. There's an element. There's a percentage of work already done. It's now that extra bit that the manager needs to be happy because he'll have his own process.
It's a continuous process, presumably.
It is. It evolves all the time. Yeah.
So for a continuous process, don't you sort of need to know what style of play you're going to have?
Well, this is where it helps, John. Yes, definitely. Because if you're changing from a Dyche, say we brought in, I don't know, a Bielsa, my God, would you need different players? So there you go. So yes, Moyes and Dyche. I think Moyes is a premium brand, better version of Dyche. But I don't think he's as defensive or as negative in any way.
Yeah.
But I think it's that British style of play is still there. I think that's important. I think that's why I think Moyes has got good results compared to say a Potter who's gone from Moyes, Lopetegui to Potter. Massive difference.
Michael Kearney says Nil Satisness, the optimum needs put front and centre next season before it fades forever. Cutthroat standards, zero sentimentality is what we need. Had enough of being pushovers. If there's a curse, get an exorcist. Well, we leave the Hadjuk curse where it is when we leave Goodison Park, don't we? To be honest. Derek says I'm conflicted by this. Do we have revolution or evolution? If the starting 11 next season has 7 new players, would they play like they just met?
This is a big thing for me. Yeah, I think 7's the maximum, or 8 maybe the maximum. I think I've spoken about this before. If you look at the history of players, I remember someone said to me the other day on Twitter, "Well, look at Forest where they are." I went, "Well, just been 2 relegation battles because they brought so many players in." It's very hard to be. Even Moyes, I think Moyes knows that really, really down to a T. I think that's why he's looking at Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Patterson very closely to think, I don't want to get rid of these players if they can provide me something next season. And we're not talking about Dominic Calvert-Lewin has to stay for the next 10 years. Moyes might only need him for 18 months, 2 years, and then he's going, we'll sell you. And, for obviously a reduced fee because he'll be 30 by that time. But it's all about that short, medium and long-term plan.
And it doesn't even mean Calvert-Lewin was to stay that he's the number one anyway.
Yeah, I think everyone's excited because the stadium and stuff, but let's be realistic here. You can't change everything this summer. We're not going to go from where we are now to Champions League. We could do, by all luck, by all means, by the grace of God, let's please let it happen. But in all likelihood, it's going to be a multiple window evolution, revolution, whatever you want to call it. I think revolution's quite hard in one summer.
You've got to balance risk, which is what you're funding.
Massive. It's massive. You've got to have a squad to bring new players in, so you can't just bring new players into an empty building.
So let's just play a game, because evolution and revolution is something people can debate forever, right? One person's evolution is 10 years. Someone else's evolution is 3 transfer windows. Where are you at?
So for an Everton and the level of money they're talking about, I think 3 to 4 window. No, I'll say 5 because I'll say 3 summers. It should be enough to get them. If we're all being well.
Summer one, so 3 summer windows.
Yeah, 3 summer windows should get them in a place to be a top 8 team if they do it well enough.
The top what?
Top 8 team consistently. That means pushing for Europe consistently. By the way,
that's way too slow for me. You're saying 3 years.
No, but I'm not saying we can't. I'm not saying we can't jump
but
that.
You're saying that will be the evolutionary version, which is why I think it's too slow.
So to me, realistically, it could happen quicker, but just in terms of that's 15 players. If you buy 5 players, we need more than that this summer. That's 5 players. That's a squad of 15. You keep your 10 best players from the squad of 25. I think anything quicker. Now, if you do 7, that's 14. You're doing it quicker, of course. I just think if you change too much, and if you try and bring too many players, it lowers the level of the ability of players you're allowed to bring if you change too much. And I think Everton as well, it's got to be staged, because at certain points, if you're going to be if you get 10, say next year or whatever, you can bring better players in than you can now. I know people think that's silly, but perception's everything. If you see me like a team on the up, you can bring better players in. So I wouldn't commit to bringing loads of players in now, because we may be able to get better quality player next summer. So it's about that staged evolution. I understand that 3 years seems a long time, but football's forever. It'll be long after we've gone. And we want to see them do well short term, but it's got to be done right. So that's why I'm saying 3. 2 would be great, but three for me would be perfect.
Anyone who wants to take a long time to do stuff has more excuses for not delivering.
Is 3 years really a long time? If you look at this is Forest,
it's twice as long as the average tenure of a Premier League manager.
But the manager doesn't matter, does it? The club matters.
It
is tricky, because other teams have proven you can do it. The Champions League's a bit of a thing, but Everton could quite easy getting the conference next season by having a solid season. I think what Andy's saying is to sort of be able to go look at it and go, for the Champions League, that might take 3 years to be considered. Like we'd consider sort of Villa now, wouldn't we? We'd look at Villa, Newcastle, Forest. I'm not so sure, but Villa, Newcastle, you'd go, they're in that group with the other 5. The 5 you'd expect to be the 7 now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if you look like for next season, right now I'd take Forest out of it, right? Because they might end up being 8 anyway.
Sure.
And if you went, who do you think the top 7 will be made up of teams next year? You'd probably put your hat on those 7. Doesn't mean Bournemouth won't jump over 2 of them, or Fulham or Brighton, whatever. But what it means is, if you had to sort of take an educated guess at which 7 teams would be in the top 7, you'd probably go with the top 7. That Forest, maybe for Villa, you'd probably swap. I would anyway. That's how I'd look at it. But Everton to be part of that conversation, it might take 3 years.
With Man United and Tottenham being in there as well.
Well, exactly. But right now, you're looking at them and going, I wouldn't guarantee United will be in the top 7 next year, but I think Spurs would be closer if Spurs got a decent manager.
See where I'm at in these things, and clearly I've worked in the past in a very heavily focused, objective-based thing, which is achieve or move on type of thing. As soon as you say 3 summer windows, that's an eternity away, I think, in football these days, right?
It is, but in terms of what you building something, it's not. If you look at
never gets finished, Andy.
I agree, but Brighton didn't. Brighton took 2 years under Potter and then a summer window before they finished 9th.
That's okay.
We're starting from a low point here.
Yeah, that's where you get the challenge about. Are we starting from a low point?
John, I'm not saying you can't say we can do it in two summer windows. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying ideally 3 would be 3 to me is the exact right number. Now, if we do it quicker, fantastic, wonderful, wonderbar. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying that to me is the...
So on that build process, which you would sound like this is the conversation you'd have with a client, for example, a realist view.
It depends on the club, but yes.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah, a realist view. So what's an acceptable outcome of next season then, in points terms? Or it depends
really on what you're trying to do.
I mean, we're going to spend 2 years 9th, and then we finally get to 8th and into Europe. then you go, that took 3 years.
To me, if Everton finished, to me, it depends what you're doing in the summer. If you're buying players it depends what them. Again, this is all answer questions. If you're buying players for the short medium term, then yes, the project will be much quicker. If you're balancing that, you're going to be bringing in players that aren't going to adapt very quickly. It might take them 6 months to a year to adapt. The problem with the Premier League now is, if you look at it, teams. Again, I'll use Brentford. Brentford took 3 years for Damsgaard, who's one of the best players this season, to get going. He had injuries, but it took him a long time to adapt. Players just don't. Great if you sign 6 players and they all adapt instantly. That is wonderful, but it doesn't happen like that. So Everton are going to be if you're signing players between 20 and 24 who are not in the peak prime, they're in the pre-prime era, they're going to have inconsistencies. So I think if Everton finished between 12th and 15th with tangible building blocks in place, I'm talking like you can see players who are going to be good, that'd be fine by me. Now, you're probably going to say 10th spot the aim next season.
12th to 15th, not fine by me at all.
Well, it's fine, but different views.
If we've spent budget to finish 12th to 15th,
everyone else will be spending exactly the same amount of money.
Well,
this is where people forget. Everton are going to improve in one hand, but other clubs are going to improve. Man United and Tottenham are going to spend more money than this.
Clubs will improve, but some will be restricted, particularly if squad ratio comes in, because they don't have the...
Oh, I agree. Squad ratio is going to be difficult for people, yeah.
And we're going into a new stadium. You've got attraction... getting players.
I'm just going to say now, stadiums don't attract players.
But Tarkovsky saying this the stadium.
He's got to say that he's a player who plays for Everton.
That's what I said, right?
Stadiums don't attract players.
But I don't think setting out your stall.
I'm not saying set it out your stall like that.
Yours personally, generally, setting out your stall to finish 12th to 15th in a squad that, had it been managed properly, would have already been 12 to 15.
I also think this is a down year for the Premier League. I think in a normal year, Everton would have probably finished 16th, 17th, 18th.
Well, we'll never know, will we?
Listen, that doesn't matter. My point is it's about taking the right steps. And now, there's variables. If you're saying that, are you saying 10th next season roughly?
No, I'm talking points. I don't care.
All right, points. 50 plus points for me.
Yeah. 55ish. I'm thinking.
Yeah, 50 plus points for me, and a tangible improvement in a play. I'm not saying every player has to be perfect, because I'm sure Michael Lenko's going to have to play a lot of next season, or whoever, because you're not going to start to sign a lot of players. But it's seeing those building blocks in place. At the moment, you've got Pickford, who's 31, I think, or 32 this season. Is he going to be in 3 years? Maybe, maybe not. But Branthwaite, we'll see what happens with him. But I don't see a lot of building blocks of a team that in the next 2 seasons is going to finish top 8 consistently. I think I see the blocks of a mid-table team potentially, but I need to see better players coming to the club. Now, I might. If they have a great summer window, I might augment that, of course. But at this moment in time, I'm saying 3 summer windows.
But you're saying,
because January is notoriously hard to buy for. We could probably
don't count into one, right? Yeah. But when we finished last season, what you're advocating, as a realist, is the end of next season. We should achieve 50 plus points, having spent a bucket load of money. Potentially, which means you're not even sure it'll be 50. It could be less, do you think?
Again, it all depends on what you're building. I think performance isn't just, of course, the only thing that matters is points and where you've points, of course it is. But the actual tangible improvement on the pitch doesn't always come with points and performances matter, because that will eventually lead to points. I think I hate using Brighton or Brentford, but if you look at the platform, they're the 2 smartest clubs for me in the league, outside of the fellas over the park who are not as smart as they once were, I'll be honest. Sure. But they incrementally built. I'm not saying Brentford have got a lower ceiling than Brighton, because the owner's not as willing to part with as much money. They've got different revenue streams. They haven't sold players for as much money. But if you look at Brighton, Chris Hughton had got them up with a rubbish team. They spent money on that team as well, but they could stay up. And then they took 2 seasons where they risked it. I'm not advocating Everton to risk it for 2 years, because we've already risked it for long enough. But they've developed the team now that they've the basis. So when they bring players in, they don't have to rely on them short term. Everton, whoever they bring in, are going to have to rely on short term, and they might not be able to adapt quickly. It might take them 6 months to adapt, and the results will be iffy in that time.
Short term decision making won't take 6 months to adapt, because that's the antithesis of.
But short term performance. I'm talking about of those players adapting to the league. You're going to get inconsistencies.
Listen, if I'm the owner, right, sitting in Houston, Texas, and you're telling me spend £100 million and we'll get the same amount of points as Dyche got last season, I'll be telling you where to go.
But then that's about the plan. That's about the plan. If you're saying to me, "Well, spend £100 million, we'll finish 11th this season," that still doesn't sound great, does it? But if I say, well, actually, that's stage one in the build block, and eventually in the next 2 to 3 years,
there's no evidence whatsoever that clubs build incrementally every single season.
But they do, though.
Which ones?
I've just told you Brighton and Brentford are built in.
They'll end up at the end of this season pretty much where they were last season, the season before.
But that's their goal, though. That's not our goal. Our end goal is different.
That's fine, that's their goal, but our goal isn't that, right?
Well, Aston Villa, until they got the right manager, but they already had the squad, so that was just adding the right manager. We haven't got the squad. Newcastle have been held back by the fact they had to buy those players in that January, because they had to spend so much on players to keep them up.
It actually hit them onto the ceiling, doesn't it?
Yeah,
PSR and stuff.
So, but I'm not saying 4 years. I'm saying 3 seasons maximum. But that to me would be enough time to build.
4th season before you have the squad in place, wasn't it? Right. But the point is, we won 48 points last season.
But
you're telling me
that team's not fit for purpose anymore.
Build up over
that team's not fit for purpose anymore.
Okay, fair dues. But we got it right. So we got 48 points last season in this league.
Got 59 under Carlo. That was only 43 seasons ago.
48 last season, right? We would have presumably, if we had proper leadership, we'd have set a target to beat that this season, and then the manager at the time would have said, "Yeah, well, I need these attributes and things to do that." So that would be our modest stretch of 52, 53 points. I know this just all sounds like arithmetic, right?
No, it's not fine.
And then you do it again. That's building, not fundamentally do less than you did last season, next season, having spent 100 million quid. But you can tell everyone it was phase one of a plan. Because plans, the longer the plan is, the more likely it is to be disrupted minimally by unknowns.
Are you two talking on slightly different things, though?
Go on.
I'm talking about outcomes.
No, just as being... I'm going to be devil's advocate.
Go for it.
I think you two might be talking about slightly different things, though. I think Andy, from his job point of view, is talking about building a team.
A squad to a team,
a squad over 3 years, because
yeah.
You're picking up the pieces bit by bit, aren't you, over the summer, and you're building towards something.
Sure.
Whereas you're talking about spending money to get somewhere quickly, like up
No, I'm not talking about quickly. I'm talking about it doing it objectively, based on targets. So
£100 million won't touch the sides, I'm going to be honest. In the modern Premier League, it won't touch the sides.
I'm coming in here,
okay.
right? The thing is, everyone would have that, though, wouldn't they?
Which?
Everyone would go, we'll spend this amount of money and we'll just improve, and that's it, we'll be there. If everyone did that to that plan, then how will Everton jump over 3 or 4 people? I think what I'm assessing, Andy's saying, where people would have a conversation and go, Everton are in that mix for the Europa League or the Champions League. It might take 3 years to get there. What you're saying, and I tend to agree with both of you, there's no reason why Everton can't be in the Conference League next year.
There's no reason whatsoever. But that is not that's a plus. Yeah. But the end goal is still to be a consistent, let's say 4th to 7th team in 3 years' time, consistently over the next 5 6.
That's what we want, don't we? I think you're saying a similar thing.
There's so many variables though in football. This is what I talk about. Arsenal were disappointed to finish second.
As well, aren't you? If I'm a Tottenham fan in the summer, I'm expecting my team to be challenging for Champions League.
He finished 5th last season.
That's what I mean.
I said the same thing yesterday, didn't I? People were bandying around this 60 million figure. I was like, don't even bother.
What's that, sorry?
Spend 60 million. What's the point? What's the point?
Yeah, but 60 million, 6 player, 10 million down. It's not.
It wouldn't get you anywhere.
No, they were talking like final figures. 60 million.
Good luck at anything anytime soon with that.
You're not gonna get, that's what I'm saying. You're not going to get anywhere if you spend 60 million. If these people have got the money they say they have, then you're going to have to go big. All right, PSR's consideration, I get that.
I think Sardi's going to help a number of clubs this season as well.
You're going to have to go big this summer. Like, and I'm with John on that point. You're going to have to go big this summer. If you've come into Everton Football Club and you want to move the needle and you want to prove, someone's just give you a stadium, not for nothing, I appreciate that, but someone's just done the hard work for you. Me and Baz about this yesterday. The novelty of that stadium's going to wear off so quickly, so incredibly quickly. The outside world are like, okay, you've had your end of season little cry. You're now moving to a new stadium. No, but it's like though, innit? The focus isn't going to be on Everton for that long. Right. The focus is on Everton at the moment is because Dunk's got a book out, and because Everton are leaving the ground. They'll get a month or so when Sky and BT get to go in the ground for the first time, and it's all dead shiny. Everyone's like, oh, look at this. That novelty will not wear. And do you know who it won't last long with? Everton fans. I was talking to someone about this last night, and they were saying to me, I'm probably going to go to less games next season, even as a season ticket holder, because I don't have that thing of needing to go every week because it's not Goodison. And I see where that person's coming from. Is the novelty for me is going to wear out. You know, if Everton are charging massive amounts of money, that novelty factor won't be there forever. The novelty factor needs to be replaced by the wow factor. It needs to be players on the pitch that go, wow, these are a step up from what we had. Because at the end of the day, that's what you go to footy for.
You want excitement.
I don't go to footy, as amazing as it is. I don't go to footy to see a tifo display. I go to footy trying, God forbid, Everton to some day. Please, I want to see Everton win something as an adult, for God's sake. Do you know what I mean? And that's all we're all striving for, isn't it? And that's what the Friedkins have got to do now. They've got to actually go, oh, it's great this, but this is about winning things. That's what they know over the park. It's about actually collecting trophies.
Of course.
And that's what this football club's got to get back to, because
at the end of the day,
that's what it's all about.
Recruitment's key.
Yeah.
Get a few players, changes it. Newcastle did it. Newcastle went from a team that won one game at Christmas.
We can't recruit like Newcastle, though.
I'm saying.
When they were bought, they had no debt. There's a different level of PSR difference. We've still got legacy issues, slight.
From July the 1st.
Why so negative, Andy?
Sorry.
July the 1st.
Realism.
No.
It's real. It's not. It's realism now.
July the 1st.
Live in a realistic world here.
July the 1st, a lot of it changes because you've also got a year to correct whatever you're doing anyway. And Branthwaite will be gone as well, my belief.
It's got to perform best in this season. We want 70 million now.
So it's one of them, isn't it? And there's a swing of 80 million. And Everton will be in a much better place. If you do the recruitment right, you can change your team. I look at all of these teams up there, the top, they're all.
But the problem is,
if you're sitting in
to Goodison all season, and I've seen the teams who might get Villa were not when they come to Goodison. Everton should have won the game. Arsenal, Liverpool, you know, all of these teams, this Everton team that I don't believe is good enough, has battled with all of them and been able to grind results. So, ex-players, different type of players means you can win more games. Our home form's rubbish. 4 home wins. If Everton had won 8 home games, they'd be challenging for Europe now. This squad's not.
Could hold a 2-goal lead, we'd be challenging.
But that being said, you do have to also build what Andy. You have to build like that, otherwise, you might get.
You're not going to get. You know, if you say you sign seven players this summer, there's no guarantee that all 14 are going to work out.
No.
So in an ideal world, yes, I agree that if everyone
risk it.
What?
That's the whole point of trying to de-risk.
I agree with you, but there's so many variables.
But anyway,
I don't know.
Well, there you go. So if we're in the boardroom, right, and we're having the debate.
But I don't work for Everton, so I'm not pitching.
No. But you're playing the role of either the manager or recruitment or whatever, right? If we're in the boardroom debating this, and I say to you, we're not going to go backwards, and you go, I don't know.
I wouldn't
we may have to.
Sorry, John. I wouldn't say if it was him. I would say no because I would want them to invest in me as my belief of the plan. Of course, I would. You'd say, listen, with the right level of investment, we could do it in 2 years. But
no, I'm not talking about years. I'm actually talking about a process, right? Which starts off with a view that says, what are we going to achieve in this season with this squad, right? And the answer one assumes that when you start the debate is not less than the points you got with the same squad last season, right? Then when you start swapping players in and out, as your overall objective must be to replace the players going out with better players coming in the round. I mean, clearly if a Branthwaite goes, whatever, right?
Of course, yeah.
And therefore the net outcome should be a better outcome.
Ideally, yes.
More points.
Yeah.
It's holding the feet to the fire, isn't it?
Yeah, damn right.
This season, Mr. Negativity, not you, Andy, Mr. Negativity decided that we were going to struggle this season, even though he got us 48 points last season.
Yeah. Because he didn't need to do anything else.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Leadership.
Yes, I agree.
I'm talking about leadership.
David Moyes from the off has been saying, this isn't good enough. This player isn't good enough.
Yeah, because Moyes, short term, this is the difference between Moyes and maybe, the way I think. Moyes hasn't got years and years to build a team. He just hasn't. So he does want to do it quicker. He wants to get Everton back. He wants to play in Europe again. So there's a difference. My worry is we've seen, it's a totally different regime, totally different people involved. But I've seen us trying short term. I've seen us trying to
short term decision making.
No, I'm not. Even so,
evolution is. Yeah.
Well, if you want to jump up the league quickly, you're going to have to make short term. Generally, You're betting on more short-term players. Generally, we've seen with Alan,
You said before about we starting from a low base.
We are starting from a low base,
The low base is not less than 48 points because that's what a crap manager got last season. Bear with, right? We changed the manager again, and therefore we're actually going back.
Logically, I agree with you, but that's just how football always works. But yeah, I agree.
Well, I don't.
That's just
believe about football. Maybe this debate's part of what's wrong with football because he uses the phrase "hold people's feet to the fire," and you just quoted the manager talking about these players just aren't good enough. When he walked through the door, the first thing he said was, "These guys weren't going to get relegated as far as I could see from afar." Is he now saying now you can see it up close? Oh yes, they might have.
Well, we might be saying that.
Yeah,
under the wrong manager, they could have, of course. But realistically, the bar is very low this year for relegation. Wolves have leapfrogged us, and Wolves realistically.
The bar's low for staying up. It's not low. It's less low. That makes sense. Winning points. Right, and we should have exceeded the points we got last season this season. So let's say we'd finished this season with 50 points, and you're sitting in a boardroom with me saying, for sustainability and for the next 3 years of progressive growth, blah, 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 we want to spend £100 million. And the indication you just gave that 100 million doesn't mean aggregate transfer value 100 million. It means multiple players that through amortization and what have you.
Well, I don't know, whatever you would call it.
Yeah. But because you said that's so many players.
Well, if that's what they're saying, 60 million, but I wouldn't take the whole spend.
No, of course not.
The commitment isn't 60 million.
But anyway, but you're talking to the board saying, give me the money, right? And they say, well, what am I getting for it? You can't say,
but the club will have a 3-year plan. I've got no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, sure it has.
So baked into that will be the CEO Moyes saying this is where I want to finish this season, and obviously be holding against that. Now I don't know what they're saying. I'm just saying pragmatically, 3 years would be what I would want because I would want to. I don't think. Everton. By the way, when I say finish, Everton, there's so many variables in where you finish and how many points you get in the Premier League. I'm talking about consistently. Once you get to I'm talking about getting to a point where consistently, where Villa are at the moment, finishing between 4th and 7th every season for the next 5 years. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about this season we might finish 10th, next season we might finish 7th, next season 13th.
I get that.
So it's about building a squad where I think gets to a consistent level of performance.
But I just think any plan in this sport. All the euphemisms around football's not like that and so on, then you cut your nose off to spite your face because what happens when you fail in year one, right?
It depends what you consider failure, though.
Well, that's what I mean. It's emotive, deliberately emotive.
If you're playing a lot of young players and I'm going to be honest, it's very hard to get relegated if you're side of Everton with the wage disparity. It's just massively different.
We've done our best to have a go.
We have tried, to be fair. But if you're saying there's like 6 or 7 really good young players, they're just a little bit inconsistent, a little bit naive in certain games to lose. You finish 14th on, we'll say 46 points or whatever. But then you think, well, next year these players, in theory, of course, are going to get better. And that to me is building blocks.
But you sell them and then restart the 5-year cycle again.
I wouldn't sell. You don't have to sell them. I don't think the Friedkins will want to be. I don't think we want to be. We'll sell 1 or 2 players because every player's got a price.
Yeah.
But I don't think we'll be selling multiples of players like we have been. And I think that this is where you've got to have those building blocks, and that's to say, until I see those building blocks, I'll adjust my calendar then. But I don't until the building blocks are in place. I can't believe in the project.
Head is right sometimes, yeah.
It's quite a lot to be fair.
And we're very close to be on the same page, right? Hence, it's not what you use, the way that you do it, right? And I'm very much into aggressive objective setting, right? Really aggressive, but achievable.
It's more than achievable,
right?
but it's consistency after that.
Well, consistency comes through process, right?
It does, but also comes
from culture.
Yeah.
As soon as you start, we probably need to stop, I guess, but a manager getting an objective from a board that is finish above a certain position, 14th or whatever, to me means you're flawed in your planning from day one.
Correct.
Because it's not within the gift of any club to determine where they finish in the league. Yeah. It's only within their gift to how many points they might win. And we all know you can finish with 70 points and qualify for Champions League.
1 year.
1 year. Another year, you can finish with your 70 and not qualify for Champions League.
Everton.
But in both cases, you got 70 points. Yeah. And so it's got to be a points-based objective. And I'm telling you, because I keep saying that, I suppose, but if I'm in the boardroom, I'm the little shitbag nagger who's saying, hang on a minute, we're spending 100 million to get 50 points.
I agree with
and if we don't spend 100 million, we get 48.
I agree with
the 48.
I agree with the sentiment, 100%. It's just, we're talking about the same thing.
I think we are, yeah.
We're coming at different angles. You're coming at it from a management perspective, I'm coming at it from a planning perspective. I get it.
So at the moment, right?
I'm planning.
Yeah, I know you are, but a different
Andy
plan.
said 50 plus points, and people will say, 50 plus points gets you in the comfortably top half. Well, Fulham have got 51 points at the moment, and they're 11.
Yes.
So Everton got 53 points next season.
It depends, because I think United and Spurs are going to push a lot of teams down 2 places because. Well, we'll see what United.
That's why the points important.
Yeah, we'll see what United, because we never know.
I think
Spurs with a new manager will finish top 7. They've got a good squad. We've seen good squads get far in Europe because you've got that ability to change squads. Everton haven't got that currently. So we've got. I think Moyes has got 15 players he's picking from roughly, and even then he doesn't like them all.
Listen. Again,
Andy agrees with you, by the way, because we had this chat briefly last week. Because you were on 50-ish points, weren't you? And he knows, because I told him I'm on 55. We're arguing about 10% point difference.
But there's the variables for me.
We went from 17 to 4 with an Everton side that was. You looked at and went,
just lost Rooney.
It's not bad, but we just
incredible first half run, by the way.
Right? But what I'm saying is that it can happen.
Yeah. But then we struggled the next season with extra games.
I thought it was bang average, and it got Champions League. I couldn't believe it. I was stunned. They're miles better now than they were when they finished.
Well, that midfield's unbelievable, yeah.
Right? So it can happen, but it's all about what you do with it. And I think what Andy's saying is right. Everton could just imagine a world next year where Everton don't really get injuries and everything sort of runs, and we finish 6th, right? But we don't really build on top of that. Then why you look and go, like we all knew when we finished 4th, we knew we weren't 4th the next season, all of us.
The extra games, yeah.
Yes,
right. We got to the summer.
Right place, right time, yeah.
We grabbed different players, but you were looking.
Did we get Phil Neville late that year? Yeah, I think it was
we got 9. He got to the Champions League, Moyes, and he got 8, but he missed out on 3 that he really wanted. He wanted Carlo Cupertini, he never got him.
Great goalkeeper.
Scott Parker, he wanted.
Unbelievable, would have been great for us at the time, yeah.
Right, but Everton wouldn't go the extra 3.
I remember this Parker deal, yeah.
They wouldn't go the extra 3 million that we wanted. His agent, as he was about to walk in and sign for Newcastle, was on the phone to Everton going, if you pay the extra 3, he'll come here now. He'll get off and come back. And we wanted Mikel Forsell, and he failed the medical.
Thank God.
But he just had 19 goals for Birmingham.
His leg has fallen off, though, to be fair.
Oh, no, well, of course it was. So he missed the few that he wanted. It knocked everything back. We get done up like a kipper because of Kalina. Yeah, because we did. We got wet. Anyway.
You mean where someone's breath was on the back of someone's shoulder, yeah?
Something happens, right? So we got done up like a kipper, and obviously everything. And the biggest thing that everyone overlooked, we also lost Lee Carsley at the end of the season at Bolton, and he was key to what we did. And Phil Neville coming and didn't quite. Anyway.
We also got beat 5-1 by Rapid Bucharest.
Well, that's because we all...
Dynamo.
Dynamo. 3 grand in, didn't he? That's right. Because they got off the Champions League. The red was down.
Yeah, it was terrible, yeah.
But my point was, we flipped 17 to 4, very much like Newcastle. But we didn't buy something that meant, well, even if they drop, they're still only dropping to 7th, all right? We were all... in fact, I think we ended up finishing 11th that season, even though we were in the bottom 3 at Christmas.
Yeah.
We lost 6 of the first 7. And then Moyes always did build. If you look at Moyes' last time, if it was like now, Everton would have been in Europe every single season. Think bar one. After that, you know what I mean?
5th place,
They were always 5th, 6th, 7th.
Yeah.
So being Europe every year, which meant more money, legacy would have been different, would have been known throughout the world. To do that now, to get to that where you go with Everton could finish in Europe next. I've said to you, could have got Europe this year if they'd have won a few more games, right?
Well, Europe could have been down to 11, so it was possible.
So they could have get in the Conference League, win the Conference League. Every Premier League team that enters that should win
it, 100%. 100%.
So it could. But we want to get to that situation where, just say Everton finished 8th and it's Europe next year. We know for a fact we're in these European race again next year because this squad and players are good enough by doing that. To do that, I do think you need a few windows. But I also agree with you. If the league, look at it now and you go, that's not great. This league's not great. And yet Everton could easily got in Europe this year.
Yeah.
And we're going, Everton really have thrown 4-2-0 leads away.
Yeah.
Just for argument's sake,
Take
had
8
they have
points.
held on to them, they'd be not far away from Europe now.
Yeah.
But it's all conjecture. But I agree, building it is because we all want to get to the situation where people are looking, going, tell you what, Everton have got a good squad there, haven't they? They're in the race.
The way I look at it is how many teams come in the title at the start of every season. We probably said 3 this season: Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool.
Yeah, that's it. And it'll be saying that.
And Arsenal fans are kicking off because they're finishing second.
Yeah.
Only one team can finish first. There's always variable in where you play.
Sure.
For where we're looking to go, which is top 8, it's about 7 or 8 teams who want to finish top 8. So there's a large variance in ability to finish top 8, and that's where I think to get the consistency. Where I think
We should be able
Newcastle and Villa are at a point with their squads now where they unless they have a terrible season and injuries, they will finish top 8 nearly every season, and that's where I want Everton to get to.
I agree. Because we should be able to run over the likes of, my belief, Brighton, Brentford, Fulham, Palace.
I think what I will say is I think Brighton will be much better this season. They've been playing players who are adapting this season. They bought a lot of players who've been in and out the team this season because they're not ready. In theory, unless they sell the load of them, which they probably will, as they usually do, they should be better next season. In theory, of course,
They should be able to. They spent 140 million.
I think that took them out of the plus column today.
They've got it. They've got to be, haven't they? Right. Let's leave it there.
It's a lovely debate. Thank you very much.
No,
Good one, Andy. Come in again, mate.
Great chat, because it is.
Sorry if it found like
It's all views.
it's like you were in the bloody mastermind chair then. So,
I'd love to go on Mastermind.
It's all good. It's all good. Right. Make sure you like, subscribe. Big thanks to Andy for coming in.
Yeah,
Big
good
thanks to
man.
John.
Yeah.
As always. Big thanks to Paddy. He's over there. You're there before.
Watching the
Right.
Grand Theft Auto trailer.
Fair play. That's key things.
those clubs you said we should step over, most of them have already got more points now than they finished with last season.
I'm not saying we should. I'm saying I believe we can leapfrog those kind of clubs.
No, I'm just saying
Whether we do or we don't,
targets, I suppose.
it's irrespective, isn't it? Because you've got to go and do it. It's easy going. Yeah, we can get better than that. We can do better than Bournemouth. Well, we're not doing better than Bournemouth. We should, but we're not. A team who gets 11,000 fans playing against a team that gets 53,000. Well, we should be able to, but doesn't mean we will. It's about the recruitment again. They got the recruitment spot on, haven't they? So from where they were to where they are. So it's about time Everton did it as well.
Spot on, mate.
Right, like, subscribe, do all that. Big thanks for watching. See you later. Bye.
Cheers, Andy.